Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Ashley Amethyst, and if you're new here, hi. I'm weird, and yes, my hair is purple. If you like me and you like Storytime videos, please thumbs it up and subscribe if you are not already subscribed. So let's get into this. As you can see by the title of this video, this story is about my son, who has epilepsy. July of 2012, JB was just over 18 months old, and he had his first really big sickness with a really high fever. And we had just given him a cold bath, but he was just really lethargic, just really tired and crying, and I thought he was teething, and that was the problem. And I was holding him. I was like, baby, just get better, baby, just get better. And his body just got really stiff. And I looked at him because I was holding him. And I just looked at him, and all of a sudden his eyes rolled into the back of his head, and he had a grand mal seizure in my arms. And how do you deal with that as a parent? You're supposed to be able to hold them and protect them, and their body is just having a febrile seizure. And that was his first seizure ever. Took him to the hospital. They performed a spinal tap and a whole bunch of tests, and it just came back febrile seizure. And then about 3.5 weeks later, he had another one. And they were all febrile seizures until February of 2013. In February of 2013, I was at a new job, and he hadn't had a seizure since December, which was a great period of time because he had 12 seizures. He had 12 seizures from July of 2012 to December of 2012. And 12 seizures is 12 too many. And they were all grand mal seizures, between 3 minutes up until 12 minutes long. And poor buddy knows what a spinal tap feels like more often than he should. But in February of 2013, I got a call from the teacher at school that he just didn't feel good. He was very his eyes were gray. And JB went to Montessori school then, and they called me and they're like, you need to come pick him up. He's running a fever. He's just really lethargic and tired and not making sense. And I was like, okay. So I called Ben up and I was like, I need to pick up JB. He doesn't feel good and I can't get out of work. And he called my mom. My mom picked up JB, and then Ben and my mom scheduled a doctor's appointment. And work knew that my son was sick, so they let me out at 5:30 that afternoon. And I got home at 5:45, and at 6 o'clock he had a 12-minute grand mal seizure, after he had been pumped full of meds and shouldn't have had a fever. We then called the ambulance. They took him to Martin South, and we asked to be transferred to Palms West, which, if you don't live in South Florida, Martin South has no children. They're not good with children. They're not good with pediatric. So I was like, send him to Palms West. We've been to Palms West before, and I trust the doctors down there. And I had already talked with a neurologist from before, because he had a hospital stay in December for cat scratch fever. So I was like, just send him to Palms West. He ended up having another seizure right before transit got there. But in between he was discharged, so they didn't see it. And then at 1:30 in the morning on the 23rd of February, we were in the ER at Palms West. And again, I was holding him. I was holding him like I was behind him holding him because he had to get an IV. And he made that like weird gurgle noise. And anybody whose child has had a seizure, they've known somebody or experienced seeing somebody have a seizure, knows what I'm talking about. It's like, it's just not a noise you want to ever hear from anybody that you love. And he had a full grand mal seizure in front of doctors and nurses for the first time. And that was the third seizure in a day. And that was like one of the hardest days of my life because, one, we didn't get transferred upstairs until 6 a.m. and I was supposed to be at work at 7:45, and I called and they ended up firing me. They say because it wasn't working out, but I think they fired me because I had a sick child. And I didn't want to fight it. I didn't want to go to court because I actually didn't like the job. But, you know, shame on you. If you're watching this, shame on you. So, after the third seizure, and they saw it, they finally scheduled him to have plethora of tests. After seeing and witnessing, they ordered an EKG, which is an electrocardiogram to check his heart to make sure that this wasn't a heart-induced problem. And then they also scheduled an EEG, which is pretty much what they test for epilepsy and seizures. Didn't schedule an MRI, but we'll get to that. But they did say he had febrile epilepsy, which was a new thing in which it could turn into epilepsy, or he could grow out of it. But they put him on Keppra, and he was on Keppra for 2 years. So from the time he was 2 until he was 4. And then they weaned him off of Keppra in August of 2014, I believe. No, it was before then. It was May of 2014. And, I guess he was 3.5. Somewhere around there. He was on it for like 1.5 years and had no seizures. He ended up moving up to Orlando. And everything was going well. He played soccer. He was becoming, an active, healthy kid. And then in May of 2016, his nanny called me and said James isn't feeling right. He's just not feeling good. And, it was her daughter. She called him. She's like, I don't think, but I don't know, but I think JB had a seizure. And she goes, it wasn't a grand mal, but it was definitely, there's something up. And he had a fever, so we knew he was sick. And we went to the hospital. I'm not going to name the hospital because, honestly, I find it to be a really crappy pediatric hospital in Orlando. But, to each its own. And while we were waiting in the waiting room, I looked at him and he was just, he was looking at me, but he was not looking at me, he was looking beyond me, and like not focusing, and just like making weird lip movements, and just like losing control of himself. And I was very frightened. I was like, he's having a seizure. And my husband, Ben, was like, he's not shaking. I was like, he's having a seizure. It's not the seizure we're used to. And so I told the triage, I was like, he has had seizures in the past. He's having a seizure, but not the grand mal. He's having like I said focal or something. I was like, he's having a seizure though. I know my son. And sorry. And they were like, okay. They didn't even care. I followed up with his pediatrician, and she is literally the most wonderful lady I've ever met in my life. And she goes, here, and she wrote down a name of a neurologist, and he's one of the top neurologists in the state of Florida. So that's how I knew he was a very astute doctor. And they ordered the EEG. He had a 24-hour EEG, along with a couple weeks later a MRI where they actually sedate them for the MRI. After that, we got the results back, and they talked about it with us, and they told us that he had a frontal lobe malformation that when tired or stressed out causes brain waves to act intensified and causes seizures. And it was, to me, it felt like relief, because I knew I wasn't insane. I knew there was something wrong with him, and I knew that we could fix it. We just needed to be put on the right medication. And my husband's trying to find me. Hello. In July of this year, 2017, he had another EEG, and unfortunately, instead of getting better on the medication, he's gotten, not worse, but he's grown, and so the medicine wasn't working at the milligram that he was at. So they've titrated him up to 100 milligrams, and he had to learn at 6 how to take pills, which, you know, is not the greatest. And if this medication doesn't work, then I'm going to be, hopefully in the next couple months, asking the doctor to review the case of his medicine, and the fact that he got diagnosed with ADHD at the same time as his epilepsy. The fact that he got diagnosed with ADHD at the same time his epilepsy is increasing is also another benefactor of pushing medical marijuana as a choice for a prescription for him because of his diagnosis. And I'm hoping that if we go down that route, that it will help both his ADHD and his epilepsy to not be as severe as they both are. And the reason why I'm making this video, it's kind of a story time slash, you know, moms and dads out there, if you have a gut feeling that there's something wrong with your child, you know, always go and get it checked out, and don't give up, because you know more about your child than medical professionals. They only get to see your child for a couple hours or a couple days. You have them all the time. And I hope that for some of you out there that are going through this, you can hopefully get the answers that you need. And for anybody that is learning more about me and my life, yeah. I'm the mom of an epileptic ADHD 6.5-year-old who, he's the light of my life. And yeah, that's about it. So I hope that you all have a great day. X's and O's. Bye.